2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
I feel desperate to save my marriage, and I need a boost in my recovery. Help.
Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers. We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery. Going really well. This is one of my favorite times of year. We got 4th of July tomorrow, so love it.
Yeah, I think the 4th of July. I went for like 5 or 6 years without drinking any carbonation and any soda, and the place where I relapsed on carbonation and soda was at a 4th of July event with you and Rex, our other brother. I'm sitting on the back deck of one of our aunts and uncles, and I was like, you're like, hey, have a cold one, Tyler. Like, why don't you drink Dr. Pepper? And I was like, no, I don't drink soda anymore. And I think it was Rex that said, if you can't even drink a soda on the day to celebrate your freedom, what good is your freedom? And I drank a Dr. Pepper then. Yeah, I drank a Dr. Pepper then. And since then, I've had hits and misses with periods of sobriety.
It's all Rex's fault.
So thanks, Rex. Anyway, I do want to. We've gotten a few reviews lately, Brannon. We like to read reviews when they come in, so I do want to give a quick review, and then we'll introduce our guests and get going, if that's all right.
Yeah, let's do it.
So thank you for those who are giving reviews. This one came in just a couple of weeks ago. And it says the lenses episode. It says this discussion is a perfect example of why B&T are at the forefront and cutting edge of therapy. So insightful and honest, speaking the truth in very open and real ways, but being very sensitive to real pain. They don't enable, they provide real answers. Thank you guys. Awesome review. Thank you. We really do appreciate the feedback we get. It's nice when it's positive like this, but we'll take any kind of feedback. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, Joel, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
If you could just let us know kind of where you're at and what's going on with you, and then ask away.
Sure. So just quick background. I raised in a good Christian family, had everything that it seemed ideal from everything looking in. Parents were active in their church, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Dad always had a good job. We were all, I always had all my physical needs taken care of. And it seemed pretty ideal. I was the youngest of 5 kids. But looking back now, I realize there were some big holes in things that were missing in my family of origin life. And one of those was just emotional safety. My parents were pretty disconnected emotionally. And so when I first discovered pornography when I was about 13 years old, this was pre-internet days, so like 1984. So I found a little stash of pornographic pages in a woods by my house. Like most 13-year-old kids, pretty fascinated by that, but just also felt a ton of shame. And so I took them and kind of stashed them away, hid them away in my bedroom, pull them out and look at them periodically. And we moved to California when I was 15. I threw them away, didn't take them with me in the move, and then had kind of a similar sort of experience. Shortly after we moved to California, I found a magazine when I was out for a run just on the side of the road and took it and hid it. And so that was kind of my first exposure to pornography. And then when I was 15, was sexually abused by a athletic trainer, got kind of entangled with this guy who was sexually abusive towards me. And so, through all of this, just felt tons of shame, felt complicit in the abuse. And so I just really was hiding this all away, never talked to anybody about any of it. And that just set up a real pattern of kind of double life, shame. I was a good kid. Otherwise, I was pretty obedient and a good student, and had a pretty good relationship with my parents, although we just never talked about anything deep. And so at some point, got rid of that pornography, went to college, served a mission for my church, came back, got married. And, about that time, so we got married in 95. And about that time, pornography was starting to become more available on the internet. And at some point, particularly after we moved to Dallas, after I graduated, got more involved with pornography. Never really thought of it as an addiction because it would go through cycles of, looking at it for some period of time and then just feeling all the shame and guilt about it. And so I'd kind of stop and, I might have periods of sobriety, although I didn't think of it as sobriety at that time, but, that they would last weeks or months or years. And so it never really seemed like an addiction to me. But that was the pattern for most of my marriage. And then flash forward to 2019, we had kind of started into the therapy world with some challenges in our family, and my wife had been doing some therapy and been introduced to Brene Brown. I think I had read one of her books, and so these therapists that my wife was working with and that were working with our family started having a men's group, and it was intended originally to be a 8-week kind of high-level overview of Brene Brown stuff. Oh, that sounds interesting. I could do 8 weeks. 4.5 years later, I'm still in that group, and it's been pretty life-changing to me. We talked a lot about trauma and codependence and just a lot of different topics that have been very helpful. But so that was the first time when I started that group, that was like the first time that I felt any emotional safety. And so I first of all, I told my wife, and then I told the group about the sexual abuse that I had never told another human about in my life. And then shortly after that, I started having, some trauma responses. And so I started working with a therapist individually at that point, as all these memories were kind of starting to resurface. And I knew then I also needed to tell the rest of the story about the pornography habit. And so a little over 4 years ago, I told my wife about that. And it was pretty devastating. I disclosed what I thought was everything, but then we did a full therapeutic disclosure a few months later, and told the whole story from the very beginning and everything involved with it. And so we've been working to recover since then, individual therapy and groups and couples therapy. And I had a period of sobriety of about 6 years. And then that takes us up to this year when I was having a lot of just kind of underlying emotional challenges. My mom passed away in February, and then I just was having a overwhelming workload, a lot of deadlines, and a big professional exam that I was going to be taking in April. And all of that just kind of weighed in. And so I had a relapse end of March. And I'd had a few slips prior to that, and I had always told my wife, and we had agreed that I'd tell that to her within 24 hours. But this time, like, the wheels just really kind of came off the bus as far as recovery, and over a period of about 6 weeks, acted out multiple times and never told her. And then when I was trying to get back into recovery, it's like, oh, it's my wedding anniversary, or it's Mother's Day, and making all these excuses not to tell her. So by the time I finally told her, it had been, several weeks, and she was very upset. Told me I needed to get out of the house, and so I left that night, not knowing what was going to be going on. So that was 6 weeks ago. We've been separated for 6 weeks, although I just moved back into the house yesterday. But we're still in this very fragile kind of time. We've had a couple of couples therapy sessions. She's made it clear that if I can't change, that divorce could be a possibility. And so I'm just at this really critical moment where I don't want to be separated. I don't want to be divorced. I love my wife. I love my family, and so I'm trying to figure out what I need to do differently. I've been doing recovery all this time, going to groups, but I have just felt really kind of stuck and trying to figure out what I need to do next. And I've been thinking about some kind of, experiential retreat kind of thing. I mean, I've looked at your Rising Sun. I listened to a lot of other podcasts, and there's other retreats and programs. And I've thought about going to an intensive week of therapy at the Meadows in Arizona. Online programs. I'm just trying to figure out what my next step should be. I really feel like I need to really take action with recovery and step it up. The other challenge I'm working with is it's been identified that I have intimacy anorexia, which is kind of a co-addiction that goes along with this. So I'm struggling working through that as well, which is, I think, a big part of the pain to my wife. So just trying to figure out what I need to do to save my marriage and kind of get things back headed in the right direction.
Sounds like it's been quite a journey for you. I want to just make sure, Joel, we get this clear. You got into recovery, experienced a period of 6 years of sobriety, then you had a big relapse that wasn't fully disclosed. And the lack of full disclosure is what led to the separation, which is now part of what you're trying to work through with your wife right now. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was when I disclosed it to her that the separation.
But then you're saying that part of what's coming of this is that you're realizing that, I guess I'm trying to tease this out a little. I'm hearing that you've already done a lot of good work. You had life-changing kind of experiences with this shame group that you started 4 years ago, and you've had some success with sobriety, and there's been more honesty up until this point where there was this breach. So there has been quite a bit of, what's the right word, progress in your personal recovery, but you're also now coming to this point of realizing that there's something, and I'm I'm going to put words in your mouth here, but something maybe emotionally not clicking with that recovery. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I really felt like, so when I disclosed initially to my wife 4 years ago, I had a couple of years of sobriety behind me already. But this was like the first time that I was doing anything about it, like instead of just like white knuckling. And so I really felt like, okay, this time is going to be different. I've got it. And, finally I'm going to church's ARP group, and I've got my Thursday therapy group, and I'm doing individual therapy, and it's going to be different this time. So when I started having some relapses, it was pretty disheartening. And so there are still obviously just things that I'm trying to work through emotionally, and
Joel,
yeah.
Joel, you mentioned kind of learning a little about codependency, and then you also at the end there mentioned like it's been identified that I struggle with intimacy anorexia. So to me, those things very much have to do with attachment issues. And I guess my question is one, like, who identified that you have intimacy anorexia and why?
So my therapist, she's getting training from Doug Weiss, and the Thursday night group that I'm going to, the men's group, is actually, we're kind of focused on intimacy anorexia right now. And it was identified in me, I think, all through my marriage, I have not been very emotionally connected to my wife in particular, but to the children as well.
Okay.
And I realized that was modeled to me in my family growing up. My dad was gone a lot and busy with church responsibilities, and absent in a lot of ways from my life emotionally, as was my mom. And so I kind of grew up thinking that was normal. And so my pattern has been, that I've been very emotionally disconnected, and that has been especially true. So prior to this separation, we did an in-home separation last year, and it felt at that time like that just really kind of cemented us on this like parallel path. Like I really kind of withdrew, and when I should have been trying to fight to reconnect, we were living in the same house, but just talking about logistics and things that we needed to take care of for my daughter and that kind of stuff, but really not ever connecting on any deeper level. And I know that the intimacy anorexia has been a part of my marriage all along, but that time really seemed to really kind of cement it. So I'm working to overcome that right now. I'm actually doing the 12-step program for intimacy anorexia, which is like every other 12-step program, just tweaked for its, that particular subject. But
so I want to share with you a story, and this is kind of what's coming up for me a little bit, Joel. I had a guy call me just about a month ago, and he's getting divorced, and he called and he said, I think I am a narcissist. In a really humble way, he said, I think I'm a narcissist. My therapist said that I was a narcissist, and my spouse says I'm a narcissist. And he said, I think I'm a little bit autistic, and I have ADHD, and I'm an addict. And he's going down the list. And he said, I've been reading these books that are telling me that that's what I am. And so in every way, in many ways, on this phone call with me, he was not presenting as those things. but in many ways he was telling me that's what he was. And so I was talking to him, kind of trying to sort this out, and realizing one of the biggest issues with him is that he has no idea who he is, that he has everybody telling him who he is. So even in his recovery from narcissism and this and that, it's just more evidence about how he's not okay and how he's not lovable. And you know, as you're talking about sobriety with Tyler, sobriety is wonderful, but Joel, you're way too focused on sobriety. I know that if you don't stay sober, you could lose your marriage. I get it. It's like a big deal. But like, your relapsing or not relapsing has nothing to do with what actually needs to be addressed. What is it that actually needs to be addressed? Tyler?
Brannon, there's actually layers to what you're saying here, and I want to make sure that we're on the same page.
Jump into the deep end here a little bit.
We're clear first. So I actually think there's multiple layers to what you're saying. One is that we do look at the problem behavior that needs to stop as the problem, and we have to stop that. Like, that's sobriety. But then there's the next level down, which is all these other things that you're saying, Brannon. And I'd like to know kind of what, Joel, your thoughts are with what Brannon's saying too on this in just a second. But I've got I've got intimacy anorexia, and I've got this, or I've got that, or I've got this, or I've got this, or I got this. Number one, I have to then filter through which of those things are actually true for me. But what you're saying, Brannon, is that there's a third layer even below that, which is, okay, whatever parts of those that are true, what's at the root of all of that?
Yes.
Right. Like, so, and you've kind of already alluded to this. One of the common things that seems to be at the root of that for so many people that we work with is almost like a lack of their own identity, knowing who they are, and a lack of understanding on a deeper level of their value as a human being. Right.
But the answer, and Tyler, this is what frustrates me, because I see therapy and therapy groups, good stuff. I've run a ton of groups. I'm a therapist, but somebody who doesn't know who they are, they're swirling around, and they go to these places to get that answer, and they're told this is you, this is, and then they swirl around more. So it's like almost the very thing that is the problem. They're applying something, like they're applying a medicine that's actually perpetuating the problem a little bit. And what I mean is to like stop for a second and say, okay, Joel, let's stop for a second and just say, let's dig down to what is the issue here. Now there's some indicators here. One of the first things is we need to look at is this attachment wounds that you have with your parents, right? Just answer a simple question here for me. What did that tell you about you as a child, about who you are?
Told me that I was unimportant, that I didn't matter. I mean, there were some notable moments of like childhood trauma that were due to neglect of my parents. I mean, not like call CPS neglect, but I mean, like one of my first memories is being left alone in a car, and being the youngest, there's a big gap between me and my next oldest sister. So I kind of felt like, I was a oops baby, or, so I think there was kind of always this kind of underlying feeling of not being, I mean, I think I knew my parents loved me, but in a lot of ways it felt like they had kind of checked out. Like I was just off doing stuff with my friends, and and they gave me a lot of freedom. And at the time, I think it felt like, well, my parents just trust me because they know I'm a pretty good kid and I'm not out getting into serious trouble and stuff. And so they just sort of let me do my thing. But in a lot of ways, they were just kind of checked out as parents.
Yeah.
And so I think that, really sunk into my heart that I'm not important.
Your identity started to shift. So from just how God made you, somebody who's wild and free, and all of a sudden you start to think I'm not important. Now you're raised in the church and you find pornography, and you start, even just maybe it's just a little bit. You found that magazine or whatever. And what did that drive home to you? How did that make you feel about you and who you are?
I mean, there was just the shame about all of it. And it's like, with, you start feeling like there's this double life. And if people really knew who I was or what was really going on with me, that I would be rejected or, cast out, whatever, that they couldn't love me.
I'm unlovable.
Yeah.
So I'm unimportant. I'm unlovable. Okay. Now let's fast forward to the abuse. The abuse happens, and you feel like you're complicit in the abuse. What messages did that say about you?
That I'm bad. And at the time, this guy was so sly that I don't know if I even really identified it as abuse. So I just felt complicit in this act that he was doing. And then when I finally, like in my adult years, realized that guy was like a total pedophile, and it struck me. But then it was like I just felt dumb. Like, it's like, how could I have not realized that? And so then there's just all these messages of, what an idiot. How could I not have realized that? And why couldn't I tell somebody? Or so there's just all of these negative messages that have been piled on.
I got one more, and then, so I'm dumb, I'm bad, I'm unimportant, I'm unlovable. Fast forward to 6 weeks ago, in the midst of this extended relapse, while you're not telling your wife, and then maybe right after you told her and she had a really strong response, how did you feel?
Kind of all of those things. Rejected, unlovable, not worthy of connection or attachment.
The same things there still to this day, right?
Yep.
And your question, I think, is how do I actually heal this? Like, this root issue, how do I do the work to heal that, right?
Right.
Joel, before we go any further with some of the answers to that question, I just want you to know that we see you. Like, that this emotion that's coming out, Brannon and I are both grateful to be a witness of what's coming out right now and the story that is attached to all of this emotion. And I want you to know that personally, I'm feeling a deep sense of love for you. I can see it in your face. I can see that the fear and the feeling of being devalued and not being good enough. And in this 10 minutes of talking with you so far, 15 minutes of talking with you, I just want you to know that I can feel a deep sense of love for you. And I'm so glad that you're here having the courage to confront these things. And maybe you've gotten more than you bargained for today, but Brannon, I think, is on the right track here. So could I ask you, like, what is it that elicited all of this emotion from you?
I mean, it's just all of this stuff is just kind of bottled up inside of me. I mean, I've had lots of opportunities over these last few years to work through a lot of it, but it still is just packed in there. And you know, when I feel that I'm being heard and seen, then it starts to bubble out, you know, because it is just, it's packed in there still.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what a great way of describing that this is so common for so many people, that sometimes when we pursue the solutions from the higher level of packing, we actually do more packing, and it kind of means we have to take that part off and actually go down into the deeper parts for a minute. And that's the whole reason you came on the show today, was to say, well, how do I access some of this deeper work then? Because I actually think that the work you're doing is great. Like, I think that the groups you're a part of sound actually good and healthy. I think that you are going to get new information that you have to run through your own system and see what's true and what's not. I think Brannon's right that you got to be careful to make sure you're running it through your system for you and not just agreeing with what everybody tells you are. But the deeper level stuff is where I think the actual healing is going to happen. You've already got the makings of being an awesome man. Like, you're already a good man who just doesn't believe that that's true yet. And that's what's so sad about this. And so let's talk a little bit about then, what is some of the deeper kinds of work once you can kind of access this part? And now you're allowing yourself to be seen. You're allowing yourself to actually acknowledge that this is maybe part of the place where some of the healing still needs to happen.
Can I ask you a question, Joel?
Yeah.
If I could offer you one or two things, you can only choose one. I play this game, Would You Rather, with my kids on road trips. And the rules are is you can't say neither or both. You have to choose one. Okay.
Okay.
You're going to play Would You Rather with Joel.
Yeah.
All right. I'm ready.
Hopefully it's over different content than you do with your kids.
Would you rather, would you rather take lifelong sobriety? You don't have to worry about it anymore. You are sober now. Or take an understanding and acceptance of self, an understanding of how much God loves you, but you might have some relapses along the way.
I take option B any day.
Okay. But the first one, you might have a better chance at saving your marriage. Because what if you slip up?
Yeah. But I don't know. I think with the second one, if I was really strong in who I was and had a better understanding of that, I think I would be showing up in my marriage differently.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be showing up in every way differently.
How would you be different, Joel? How would you be showing up differently if you had second option of, I know who I am, and I'm even going to go a step further, I like who I am, even though I'm human and I still make mistakes. How would you show up differently in your core relationships with your wife and your children?
I'd show up with that masculine energy. I'd show up with strength, with confidence. There's been a kind of this power dynamic in my marriage where my wife is a very strong person, and because of my shame, I tend to kind of retreat back and be small. Mm-hmm. I think I would, we could be a lot more co-equal kind of partners if I was taking on my masculine roles and had more of that energy.
So why don't you?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think I'm still just buried in this not good enough.
So there's the underneath has not been dealt with. The beast has not been slain. And so I'm going to give you my attempt at answering your question right now. Okay. Because I do have an answer for you. Because your question, I actually love your question, because I think it's the question that everybody should be asking themselves when they do this work. I do think you need some emotionally corrective experiences that your heart and your soul needs to feel who you are, because your heart and your soul has felt who you are through these shame-based experiences, and that needs to be corrected. Okay. But here's the thing, Joel, and I'm going to warn you. And I've done plenty of retreats. I've run plenty of retreats. We've done it with Tyler. I've gone to Peru. We've done plant medicine ceremonies. I like experiential soul healing, deep work. Once that happens, that's not a cure-all. That doesn't fix it all, because you go right back to the same inputs in your life. You go right back to the same job, same marriage, same, right? And you can revert right back to the old things, even if you had a profound life-changing experience. What it takes a life-changing healing experience or experiences. It takes support. It takes connection from people that love you differently than the experiences in your life that you've had previous. And you've created some of that. And then it takes repetition over time, day in and day out, living that principle of I'm lovable, I'm good enough, I'm smart, and showing up that way for a while until you actually start to believe it. So you can feel it, you can have a big experience, but then you have to actually step into the arena and practice it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's all kinds of ways. There's deep, trauma healing therapy like ART and EMDR. There's retreats, there's plant medicine, there's things that can awaken your soul. But then the structure and the support to have you consistently move forward is important. Tyler, anything you want to add?
I actually think that where you're going is a lot where I would be going. I might phrase a few things differently. And I might say that even Joel, just the act of being here on the show today and allowing some of the emotion to flow through you that already has might be one of those kinds of moments that you get that could be an experiential shift in you. Now, what Brannon's saying, I think, is spot on. And I think you talk to, we've done a few of these men's retreats so far now at the level that we want to be doing them in terms of the quality. And I can confidently say that the retreats that we do are life altering for the men that come. And it's that the retreats that we do are focused on some of this like deeper identity, who am I kind of work. But the guys that do the best, even after the experience, are the ones who have the bones in place of a continual wrestle with God, of relationships and a commitment to cultivate relationships with other people. Some of the guys, maybe even from their group that they just came, their experience they just came from, constant practice of self-compassion, multiple times a day have needed the actual pursuit of, and Brannon used the word inputs, of what am I going to do today that would show me acting like I know that I'm valuable. Yeah. And if I get in the habits of that, then I can go and have these emotional experiences. And I think, we can talk through some specifics here if you want for a second, but ART, EMDR, the Rising Sun Retreat, or many other retreats, I've heard great things about the Meadows, Joel, so I know that that's been life altering for several of my clients. So there's lots of options out there. If you go with a heart that's ready to receive it, you're going to likely have an emotional shifting experience. And then the work happens of trying to apply the principles in a day in and day out way. So I agree with you 100%, Brannon.
Well, and I'd add, Tyler, I think one thing we don't talk about enough in this process is it's important to add in that the day in and day out wrestle and live as if, you know, you're valuable and that you can be seen. It's also important to remove things from your life. So the cutting away and the removing of things that are the old things that remind you of this old life and this old identity that you lived. It might be relationships. It might be certain habits that you have. To cut those things out actually is important, because then it allows for those new inputs to come in. And like Tyler was saying to you, Joel, you're not starting at square one. You have a 4-year group with some brothers and connection and
honesty.
Yeah, like and some shame. You have some good psychoeducation. You know about shame resiliency. You have some recovery capital already there. I think sobriety and focusing there isn't, and maybe you're not totally focused there, but it's a safe place to stop for you, Joel. Where the real focus. Have you read Wild at Heart? Do you know what that is?
Yeah. I'm that book really spoke to me. I loved it.
Yeah. He talks about Gladiator a lot, and in Gladiator, there's that scene where he turns around and faces the Emperor, and he says, "This is I. Like I am."
He takes his helmet off, and
I think what happens a lot is guys in recovery, they turn around and they think the Emperor represents sobriety. Like, you know what, pornography and masturbation, like, this is I'm going to deal with you. And they're going to fight the wrong thing. Because the reality is, and you've taken shame resiliency groups, the battle for you is all within yourself. And the adversary has gotten in your head and told you who you are. And the battle for you is to actually not believe those lies. And a lot of it is so subconscious. And the way that you don't believe them is in those moments where you really want to act in that lie, you act opposite to that lie. Like coming on here today and talking about your sexual abuse. Heck yeah. Like you did that today. Do you see that, Joel? Yeah. And how does it feel? How are you feeling about it? You feeling vulnerability hangover a little bit?
No, it feels good. I mean, I've done enough processing around that I can tell that story, but I mean, there's still pieces of it that are very hard.
Sure. I think one thing to go along with what Brannon's saying, and even just with what we outlined here just today, the stacking of the core beliefs. I'm unimportant and not valuable. I'm unworthy, and if people knew, they wouldn't love me, they'd reject me. I'm bad. I'm complicit, and now I'm stupid. You stack those things on top of each other. Part of the day-to-day work is to notice yourself living in those ways that were just automatic. They were automatic up until whenever you started to recognize these beliefs. Now, every time you see or feel yourself operating from one of those places, you get a chance to acknowledge it, meet it with self-compassion, and renounce it and do something different. So, oh man, I'm shrinking away because I don't want to share my opinion with my wife today because I'm stupid. Oh, there's my stupid again. I'm changing. You know what? Everyone feels that sometimes. That's one of my false beliefs. I'm going to have a voice today.
Yep.
I'm going to speak up. I'm going to treat myself like I'm important and valuable. Like someone asks my opinion on something, I'm not going to say, oh, whatever you think. I'm going to say, oh, here's my opinion on it.
Right? That guy in groups being a total jerk in denial. But like, I'm not smart enough to confront him and bring anything up. I'm just going to hide in the corner here. So you notice that feeling. Oh, I want to hide in the corner here and play nice.
There's my old belief.
Right.
Now I'm going to act opposite.
Yeah, the new you is going to say, I know how I'm feeling here. I'm going to actually step into this. And it might be messy and weird. Let's see where I land here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty quiet in group a lot of the time. Every once in a while, something, they'll focus some attention on me and I'll talk about something. But a lot of the just, discussion that goes on, I tend to sit quietly a lot of the time.
You're the kind of guy in group, Joel, like in my groups, that I sit there and I watch the whole time and I'm like, please just open your mouth. Just open your mouth. And then when you do, everybody in groups like, oh, I love what that guy has to say. Why doesn't he talk more? And then you leave and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that. Like, like, it's like, no, dude, you need to step into that and offer yourself. You're putting your candle under a bushel right now, and your group needs you to speak up more.
Yeah. It's interesting what Tyler just said, Joel. Like, shame begats shame. It's like, if I sit and tell you how much you need to step up, and you have that identity and that voice in your head that says, I always fail people and I let people down, and then that's where you'll go with, you need to step up. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Versus like Tyler and I are saying, and from what Tyler said earlier about how he sees you and how we see you, like we see the warrior that you are. We see your wisdom. I can feel it from you, Joel, maybe more than you can yourself, right? And so we're not saying you're failing by not stepping up. We're saying God made you for a reason, and you are here on this earth to accomplish some amazing things. And you absolutely have the opportunity in this lifetime to do that. And it's going to feel so freaking good. You're going to feel free. You're going to feel accomplished. You're going to feel like you have purpose by stepping right into that fear and dealing with that shame. Right? So yeah, I'm excited to kind of see where you go from here. There's no magic pill.
Right.
I wish I could invent one. Have you invented one yet?
What's up, Brannon?
Have you invented the magic pill yet?
I'm still working on it.
Oh man, when you patent that thing, I want in on that.
Yeah, let me know.
Well, I do think there is some principles to the magic pill, though, that also just include a lot of work and effort. But those principles, I think you outlined today, Brannon. The putting yourself in situations to have an emotionally corrective experience, extremely valuable, whether through formal therapy or retreats or other modalities, paired up with a commitment to the daily work of treating yourself like you matter. You put those two things together over time, you get a shift. And when that shift starts to happen from the inside out, it's a lot easier to choose to do all the things that you would do anyway that would keep you sober.
Say more about the inside out, Tyler, because that's kind of what we've been talking about with you, Joel. I'm picking up on it's the outside in. Say more about the inside out.
The inside out is when I have, let's just say, I'll give you some examples. I've had moments in my own recovery where I felt like I've had God reach into my heart, not just my head, but my heart, and say, let me show you another piece of how I see you. And I get a new piece of my identity shown to me, teacher, guide, warrior, helper, whatever it is. And I go, oh, that's how you see me, God. Once I feel that that's true, and that's happened in lots of ways, spiritual ways, that's happened through struggle. I remember, Brannon, do you remember when I ran that marathon?
Oh yeah.
I broke down at like mile 19. I'm running at like mile 19, and I went to depths of my soul that I've never been to before. Something broke in me. I was just sobbing while I was running. You guys were all laughing at me.
It was quintessential, Tyler. It was great.
You did not even know like where I was. I was in the deepest, darkest recesses of my own soul at that point. And in that brokenness, somewhere I felt God's love for me, and it was changing and shifting. Now, because of that shift that happened on the inside, it elicits a response from me that happens to look like the good health we talk about with people all the time. It leads me to want to care for myself more. It leads me to want to share myself more. It leads to me wanting to be a more of an impact on the world that I live in, not because I'm supposed to, or because I won't be good enough unless I do, but because I already now know that I'm loved. And when I'm loved, love elicits behaviors that speak of love. And so that's the inside out we're talking about.
It's so critical for you, Joel. So
yeah, that makes sense.
It's another way to say it, bottom up versus top down. And what I mean by bottom up is what you really need to stop and do is figure out how to ground and how to find your truths and who you are, and like ground bottom up. Top down is everyone's telling me what I should do and I need to perform, and in order to be okay, then I'll know who I am. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to flip that around, inside out. Bottom up is what you need. And then once you're in that place of I'm doing bottom up work, I'm just discovering me. The things that we talk about, like retreats and good therapy, work really well. But if you're from the top down and you try all this stuff, those things can actually be counterproductive. So.
Okay. Have we even answered your question today, Joel? What are you thinking and feeling right now?
Oh, I mean, this has been good. Yeah, I mean, you've hit on some points that have been helpful, things that I need to do to change, taking some initiative and putting myself out there. And I think you're right on with, I this needing to work on this core beliefs, faulty beliefs, and heal that rather than focusing on the external or the superficial stuff. That's where I need to be working. So.
Well, Joel, I'd love to see you at Rising Sun. That'd be awesome to have you there. So just to pressure you a little bit.
You may see me there.
Love to see you there.
We'd love to see you. And with where your heart's at right now, I think something like that would be a really great step for you. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Joel, thank you for coming on today. Your vulnerability, your courage, is really appreciated. And Tyler and I say this a lot to our guests, but I don't know if you realize the good that you did today. There's listeners out there, there's people listening that relate, that can really feel your pain, and it's helping them a lot. So really appreciate you coming on and offering that to those people. So.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. This has been really good.
Thank you. Yeah. For those of you listening, if this has been impactful, there's a couple of ways that you can support Joel or also help the show. It's by sharing it with other people who you might find that could use it and benefit from it. And also by sending out a review or a comment to us. And we'll be happy to pass that along to Joel too. So thank you guys for being listeners here. And Joel, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
See you guys.